everyone, Pernak here, and I've got another Paper School episode for you. Alright, today's class is going to be on woven versus laid paper. Alright, so laid versus woven paper. What is the difference, or how are they alike? Well, you have to start looking at the process of paper making in Europe, is really where the term comes from. So for years, at least when they started making paper in Europe, they made laid paper. And how laid paper is made is they take big thick wires and then they weave thinner wires throughout it. So you have this guide of parallel lines that run across your whole thing, going across the whole way, and then you got little ones that weave in and out of those. And paper, of course, at this point was all handmade still. It wasn't made on any type of machine because it was still the mid-1700s is when this was, when woven paper came onto the market. Before that, they didn't have machines to make paper. They still made, they didn't even have mold machines. Like, so when we say mold-made papers, they use giant cylindrical molds. They didn't have that. They're still doing everything by hand. So they're using paper decals to make everything. And it's really the difference between them is the type of decal that is used. So paper that is laid paper has a very distinct texture. And let's take a look at that texture. So most of the time laid paper, really what is modernly used for is pretty much charcoal and drawing. I mean, you can print on it. There's nothing wrong with printing on it, and there are some beautiful papers for it. But it has a distinct texture to it, and it's and there's two versions of it. There's traditional laid, and then there's fake laid. So traditional laid is actually made using laid techniques. So it uses a laid decal. While fake laid is basically woven paper, which is then taken and put through a press of two rollers, or at least a roller with a texture on it to mimic laid paper. So papers like, so traditional laid paper would be this one right here. This is Zirkel. It's a German-made paper. And this one's very unique in that this laid paper, I don't know if you can see this. Alright, so this one is very unique in that instead of straight lines for the laid looks, you have this, let's see if you can see it. You can kind of see, let's see here. It's very difficult to see it on this one. You have to have a lot of backlight to see this kind of stuff. Let's see if I move a light behind here, if it helps see this. So you can see right here, this line that goes up and down, right here. And then you see this wavy line that goes through the paper here. And the only reason you can see this is because I'm backlighting this paper. I have a light shining directly through this paper from the back. You normally can't see this stuff. You can see the texture a little bit, but it's always much greater when you hold it up to the light like this. This one is from Zirkel. It's a German-made paper, much like Hannah Mule, which is another German-made paper. But this is like one of the things they're known for is this. But are very unique and traditional. As you can see, it's got this weird wavy feeling. It's not straight like it used to be. They're trying to go for more of an artistic look on this paper. Now another one you have is Ing's paper right here. You can see this one is Hannah Mule. Hannah Mule is also made in Germany. And they make some great printing papers, by the way. But if you look at it, let's bring this light down here again. You can see it's got the laid lines right here. And And then you can see the other lines that go crisscross. And as you can tell, if you tell the difference between them, they're very uniform as opposed to the ones on the circles. Because it was a more uniform laid type paper. Now this one may not actually be laid. This may be, I can't remember the actual technique on this. I'm going to take a look at that. I should have done a little bit of research that I did before, but yes, this paper is a mold made paper. It is not a traditional laid paper. It has the laid texture applied to it. And typically they will call that paper ings, and it comes after a famous artist who used that type of paper. Mostly it's used for pastels or charcoal, and the ones that Hahnemühle here produces comes in a variety of colors, a large amount of colors. They're really unique and interesting. I mean, they have, I don't know if you can see this. This is a rose one they have. It's a light pink color. And has, I remember seeing blue ones, and they have a couple other toned ones. These are their more natural tones right here in this pad. Now this paper can be used for printing, and since that's what I'm an expert in, is printing, and that's my passion, my love, you can use this for printing. It doesn't have to be used for charcoal. Just keep in mind it doesn't have a whole lot of sizing in it. Because mostly it's used for, like I said, pastels and charcoals. Same can be said with the Zirkel right here. I've actually printed on this stuff. It is beautiful to print with. It's very absorbent. It holds everything really nice. So it's a really good paper for printing. But it's also very, like I said, it's got a unique texture. It's that wavy laid pattern, which is really kind of cool on it. So you can get some unique textures using it, and that's one of the reasons I like it too. It's just a little bit different. Now let's jump away from laid paper and go into wove paper. So it was about the mid 1700s that wove paper came onto the scene, and slightly afterwards, I mean, at this point paper is still handmade, and it is still being handmade even when it's wove paper. Most paper nowadays is wove paper. Very few of them actually use the term wove in them, but what differentiates them is, I told you laid paper has those big thick heavy lines, or big thick heavy wires, and then you got the thinner wires that kind of, that go, you know, that go through it. Well, wove paper is basically like what we would think of as a normal paper decal in this day and age, where it looks like a window screen. It's woven, it's actually crisscrossed, and it's very fine, and it's very tight. So it creates this really uniformed texture, which is really what most laid paper today is uniform textured paper. Now, not a lot of places have paper called wove paper, and there's very few companies that do have anything even close to wove paper. I can think of two. Strathmore, a company here in the United States, makes a wove, they market it as a wove paper. It's made for fine calligraphy. They normally sell it in 8.5 by 11 packages, things like that. It's a fine, high-end stationery. Could you print with it? I actually don't know on that one. I haven't actually seen this stuff. I'm sure you could print with it. It's got to be a really good high-end paper. It's mostly cotton from what I understand. So it should work really well for printing if you choose to do so. I just haven't used it, so I have no actual usage for it. I actually, like I said, I haven't even actually seen it either, so I haven't tried it with anything. The one that most people, especially bookmakers and calligraphy artists and printmakers, will notice is Arches Text Wove, also called Velin, because it's also in Europe at the time. Velin, V-E-L-I-N, was the name used for wove paper. It was to describe the surface of it, is what the term was for, if I remember correctly. What did they say here? No, it's just known in Europe as Velin. So Arches Text Wove, it's It's a very thin, very dense sheet. It's got a very nice, beautiful surface on it. It's very, almost like a vellum type surface. It's very uniform. It's, as I said, it's popular with calligraphy artists because it's got a good sizing on it, so the ink doesn't bleed out everywhere. It's also good for printmaking, and especially bookmaking, because the pages are thin enough that you can, print on both sides without things bleeding through, hopefully. At least that's the goal. And people use it for bookmaking, fine bookmaking. So, I mean, this isn't someone who's like, I'm going to write a book and print on this. No, that's not going to happen to be way too expensive. But it is for someone who creates an art book. Maybe you do a bunch of prints and you bind them together. You might print on this paper to bind everything together. Or if you're a calligraphy artist and you're doing calligraphy, and it's really great for high-end stationery, things like that. That's pretty much the realm of what what is considered wove paper is put out. Just trying to think if there was anything else really truly important about wove paper. I mean, other than, it is grained, because it is typically, nowadays it is grained because it's made on a mold. They are mold-made papers. They're not handmade with a decal anymore. They're actually machine-made, or I wouldn't say machine-made, but they are mold-made papers. So they're normally pretty strong, and they got a grain, and no laid lines. That was one of the benefits of it, and it took off in the printing industry a lot, and that's one of the reasons it really got really well. Because if you look at old books from the older periods, and you look at laid paper made with books, you can see the texture show up through the ink. And that was one of the things that people didn't like about it. I mean, it's great for holding charcoal and things like that, but woven paper was just it was smoother and it's easier to write on. And that was one of the reasons it took off so well. It got really useful in publishing, so it really took over a lot of publishing, so a lot of laid papers weren't being created as much anymore. By distinct communities, especially the artist community, still had laid paper, and some people still wanted actual laid paper to write on, and they still made it, and they still do. It's just, you gotta find it. You gotta hunt for it. And then most of the time when you have laid paper nowadays, it isn't the same. It might even be a machine-made paper. They can even have machine-made laid papers. And how they do that is they just press the texture into the paper after they're done making it. So that way it makes that texture. Well, everyone, that's class for today. I hope you learned something. Remember, you can always give me your support by giving me a thumbs up for the video. If you have any questions, ask them down below. I will respond to them. Also remember, you can follow me on my Instagram, my Tumblr, or my Twitter. The links are up above on my page or down below. And you can also help support me as an artist by purchasing a print from me on my Etsy shop. Until next time, everyone. See ya. Bye.